Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another episode of Open for Discussion. I'm your boy, CMauriceBall. And y'all know what to do when y'all see the thing scrolling down. Hit subscribe, become a part of our community because we got a lot of dope people that we're going to be talking to over the next few months. And I don't want y'all to miss out on any of these dope conversations, these empowering conversations that are going to be life changing. And so today, I am crazy excited because I got my man. He's a CEO, he's an entrepreneur, he is a mentor. But I promise you right now, dollars to donuts, that he'll drop all those titles for the title of father. I mean, I love it. I love it. I love it. And we get to talk to him after we do what we do on this end. So look, y'all strap up. Let's get ready to go and kick that intro. Well, I am introducing to some and presenting to others my man Roderick, Mr. Ford. What
What's
is
good?
going on?
How you
How you
doing?
doing, bro?
Man, I'm blessed. Blessed and highly favored. Thank
You
you for
are
having
blessed
me
and
on.
highly favored.
Yes, sir.
Let's get that. Let's get the church music going.
I heard that.
Yeah, that's so Mr. Ford, where are you at in this world right now?
Well, I'm located in the Bay Area in Northern California right now.
West Side.
You
So
know,
so at the Super Bowl, was you really into the Super Bowl?
I didn't. It's a lot that goes on when all that comes out here, and so
Uh-huh.
I really didn't. I really didn't get into it, but
Oh
some people had a
man.
lot of fun.
Yeah, when the Super Bowl was out there for San Francisco. I think it was in San Francisco. Me and my homeboys, we was trying to pull up, but my wife vetoed that. She was like, no, you can't go to the Super Bowl without me first. Then you can go to any other Super Bowl. So I'm like, yeah, okay.
I heard.
Yeah, that kind of stole my thunder.
Mm.
Uh, but
The funny thing about it is that they say it's in San Francisco. It's actually in Santa Clara, and so people will get hotels and whatnot in San Francisco, and all the events that they have leading up to the Super Bowl are in San Francisco, I believe. But the stadium's actually about 45 minutes south of San Francisco.
oh man, so I would have been all messed up thinking I'm about to
Yep.
be chilling and be
Yep.
close and
Hmm.
we 45 minutes away. So
Yeah.
um in this in your family structure, where do you fall at in the lineage of siblings?
Um, I'm that. I'm the infamous, notorious middle child.
Ah,
My mother had me, and then married my stepfather who raised me, and he had a son who was older than me, and then when they got married, they had my younger brother. So I ended up falling right smack dab in the middle.
okay, three boys. That's
Yeah.
and do you have the normal middle child syndrome stuff? Either you're the shining star or you're not. Did you have those problems?
Yeah. The dynamic was definitely different with the blended family. Um, and so I did have that, but I don't necessarily know it was for the reasons that normal middle the middle child has those issues. It was more of a for me. It was just not really knowing who I was or where I belonged, um,
Okay,
and so it's
okay.
kind of a weird dynamic in that aspect.
Because so technically you were an only child until your mom got remarried.
Yeah, well, she wasn't married. She just my real father.
Mhm.
And I was a baby. Like I said, my my stepfather. Very rarely I call him my stepfather because he raised me. He's always been my dad. So, um, but I was, I think, a year and a half
Oh, okay. So that's
when
all
that.
you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's good stuff though. Like at that age to somebody to step in and walk along. So how much older is your older brother, and then how much younger is your younger brother?
my younger brother's 2 years younger. So when I turned 50, he got to tease me for 2 years. And he told me I was getting old for 2 years. You old now, man. And then 2 years later, my older brother, I think about 10 years, 10 years, my senior.
Oh man, so he in his 60s.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Does that ever dawn on you like, man, my older brother is in his 60s?
It really did, man. I have growing up. I had a really, me and my younger brother will always be bonded. Um, I can't even really describe the bond. It's not even spoken. It's just,
Mhm.
that's my heart. We did go through the normal sibling rivalry where we just fought a lot. Um, but I was always very protective of him, and then I
Mhm.
was also very protective of my older brother. And when I got older, me and my older brother had a really good relationship, and we ended up working a couple of places together and whatnot, a couple of car dealerships and stuff like that. But um, it was just a little bit different. I had me and my younger brother have always been close my whole life. Me and my older brother, just kind of like in my 20s into my young, probably my 20s. Yeah, throughout my 20s, that's when we were really close. And so we don't talk much more much that we don't talk that much now, unfortunately. However, I still love them both to death.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, a 10 years difference is huge because as you are growing, by the time you were in middle school, he was already in high school about to transition out, so that age gap creates that space because he's living his life as you and your younger brother, y'all kind of grew up in the trenches together. So it forms that bond that y'all have, so just
Yeah,
just being close to each other in age. Okay. So the dynamic of your house was your older brother, your younger brother, which is 2 years younger than you, and your mom and your stepdad. How
yes.
was that? How was the how was that dynamic for y'all growing up? And here's my other question: how important do you think it is to have a positive male in those formative years?
That's actually a great question, and I'll get to that. The dynamic was good. We were latchkey kids. We did grow up in the suburbs, but both my parents had to work for us to be able to live in the suburbs. And so
Mm,
my older brother was in Oakland. He stayed in the village off of 69th. Anybody from Oakland knows where the village off of 69th is. Um, it's a project. It's one way in, one way out. You'll
mm.
sleep, I think, seven to a bed, if I remember correctly. Before my dad said, he married my mom, and I'm not going to raise y'all here. So he moved us to a city called Dublin. And but he had to work. My mom had to work. So really, my brother was the person that I looked to. Even when he was trying to be a teenager and trying to be a young man, there was still Roderick and Eddie. Eddie
Mhm.
still, mom's here now. Somebody needed to look after us. So, and then my auntie came and lived with us as well, which is my mom's sister, and that's a whole another story. But she was around the same age as my older brother. So it ended up being those are the people that we look to for like immediate assistance, immediate direction. That's who gave us our parents. My parents fed us and provided for us, and we made that work.
As we do, it's
Yeah.
kind of it's what it's at that age, we were all latchkey kids. I think our generation is we the poster child for that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we
That
yeah,
Generation X, we ain't no joke.
right. Yeah, we built different. We was cooking on gas stoves that we had to light the pilot with you know what I'm saying? We about to blow the whole crib up. But we
Listen,
the
we was jump starting, pushing cars and
pushing
popping clutches. You know what I mean?
man, we was playing under power lines in lead rooms, drinking out of
Yep.
rusty water hoses.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yep.
did all of that. So as a young latchkey, are you from California?
I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. 90%
Okay,
of my immediate family, like my blood family, is in Memphis still.
Memphis, Memphis. Okay, I know one spot in Memphis, Orange Mound.
Okay. Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised? You know, Orange Mound.
or Orange Mound is all I know in Memphis. That's it. That's all I know in Memphis. So, at what age did y'all bounce out to Cali?
I was a baby, so
Okay.
I was about a year and a half old when it came to
Okay.
Cali. We used to go back to Memphis every summer till I was about 12, and that's when I started playing a lot of sports, and then that just took over everything. So there's the summers was, you know, baseball, football, all that stuff.
Hmm. Okay. So, were all three of y'all active in sports, or was it just you?
All three of us were. To put it in a nutshell, my older brother loved to run, which he just ran. He was a runner. He would just go jogging. He would go run. He was in track. He was in band when he was in high school, and even after he graduated, he would still go running. My younger brother, who my younger brother's the hardest worker
Hmm.
out of all of us, and he played football and baseball and basketball, and then I probably was the most talented, but probably was the laziest,
Mm.
because I didn't have to work hard to be good, and
Mm.
so I played baseball and I played football as well.
You said something that's that I think happens to this current generation. But you also said one, your younger brother probably was the hardest worker because he probably had to, because he was always trying to compete. He was always playing up, so he had to do that. Your older brother was kind of setting the tone, and then you said you were just naturally gifted, but you didn't put no work in.
Hmm.
I s- it, that is kind of the story of these young people right now. They have the talent and they have the gifting, but they don't want to put the work in to be exceptional, to be
Hmm.
elite. Now,
Yeah,
were you like that in the classroom too?
me and school didn't get along.
Okay.
We did not get along. However, I believe there were some other issues that just weren't detected back then that that helped with that struggle. But I spent a lot of my life, and not even going to say my childhood. I spent a lot of my life really um, kind of lost with the way the dynamic happened with the family and the move and
Hmm.
what. And so when you're not quite sure where you're supposed to be, a lot of times you can be misunderstood. And that's why, those individuals always have like one or two teachers that always, they just got it. And I
Hmm.
had one named Lisa Condon, and I had one named Debbie Lindo. And Debbie was never a a teacher of mine, but she was a teacher at the school. She was a black
Hmm.
lady, and her son played football with me and my brother. And so I could go to Debbie if I had some struggles, because being in a suburb, you're the only a handful of us were black here, and so
For sure.
we stuck together. We had our group, and then Lisa Condon, who was I think it was English literature teacher. She's the one. She sparked um, the creative juices of thought for me, and really
Hmm.
being able to see, look at a piece of art or listen to some music and get and understand how it makes us feel and explain what that does and how do you identify with all that stuff. So it ended up being those two individuals that really inspired me, but the other ones, I just struggled with it. And
Okay.
I didn't work hard at it. I didn't work hard to understand why. I just kind of accepted me for who I was. which wasn't a good thing.
So middle school, you kind of struggled through that,
Hmm.
along with things that were happening at. Now, how did your parents receive that? Let's say eighth grade, you're sitting around, you're still trying to, turn the pieces of the puzzle over. Were you acting out? Were you seeking attention? Or was sports the thing that kind of was the grounding point, and then within that, you just kind of made everything work around that particular around the sport?
That's kind of what happened. I was extremely shy
Mm.
child, and then once I started playing football, that's what actually, and I got good. I went from not that good by the end of the season. I was really good,
Hmm.
and was even up for an award that I didn't get. It was like most improved or something like that. And they ended up giving it to a guy who had broken his leg because he was, supported everybody through it. And I had people come up to me saying, "Hey, man, you probably should have got that award," but it didn't really. It is what it is. I was just happy that I had started for the first time in my life. I had started having some confidence in who I was, and I started coming out of my shell. And that definitely, I was able to leverage sports and how well and how good I played in sports to help fuel that confidence. So it
Hmm.
allowed me to kind of to open up and be, I would say, call maybe the social butterfly. I knew everybody. There wasn't one clique of the school that I hung out with. It was the popular kids, the nerds. I knew someone in almost every clique, and I
Hmm.
and I liked that because I could just go around and get different, talk to different people.
Yeah. So I mean, if the acceptance wasn't there in one space, the acceptance was there in another space.
Yeah, and I think that's what I did. I think I used that as I'm thinking about it. I just used the multiple different areas as validation points for me.
Hmm.
If I wasn't getting in one area, I know I could go over here and get validated as a cool guy or whatever. And that's just kind of how it worked for me.
Okay. So in that, how was the relationship with you and your dad? Because that's pretty, he stepped in and took over that role. How was that relationship, and how was your relationship with your mom? Because your siblings is something totally different. This sibling stuff, you do what siblings do. But how was your relationship with your parents?
That's a great question, and uh, that's a great question. I think, given the circumstances, I didn't necessarily have the best relationship with either.
Hmm.
My father, uh, that raised me, he showed me how to provide,
Hmm.
and that's about it.
Okay.
My mom loved me to death. I feel she was my protector as much as she could, and but I never really had conversations with my father growing up about life or anything other than that. It was more of I provided a house and over your head some clothes and some food, and um, that was about it. He had definitely a better relationship with my younger brother. He probably has the best relationship with him, and I think my older brother kind of got a raw deal. If I'm being honest, he kind of
Hmm.
got a little bit of a raw deal. He had lost his mom, and not too long after that, um, my mom was introduced as quote unquote his new mom, and I don't know if he ever really got a chance to grieve from that. And I think that was just a struggle that he had throughout his life, that transition and how it impacted him, and the things that's happened to him in his lifetime. And I think it really, even me being moved away from Memphis and not knowing who my family was, and not finding out that, I didn't find out until I was 12 years old that my stepfather wasn't my real father. Um,
Mm.
and so those are formative years. I mean, it was really powerful moments
Right.
for me, and I'm sure it was a powerful moment for him as well, trying to adjust to that and see what that feels like. And I think when I found out I think I was 12 years old when I found out my stepfather wasn't my real father. I think I was reeling from that for years.
How did you how did you digest that?
Mm.
Because right now there's somebody that's listening, that's going to be listening to this, and listening now, and going to have that question, like, how did, at that young age, had to have a child who's trying to digest just finding out information like that. So how did you digest that? And then what was the what was the questioning that you had to your mom as to why?
Well, the way I found out, and I'm going to be just have a moment of vulnerability and transparency right now. The way I found out was my parents were arguing.
Mm,
Um, they were having an argument. Me and my brother used to try to. We would go into the garage when we were younger. We'd go hide underneath the bed, or we would just leave the house while they were arguing, try to get away from it.
hmm
And I happened to be downstairs, and I just remember very vividly that I was downstairs in the TV room. My mom was in the kitchen, and my father had just walked upstairs, and they were kind of yelling back and forth. And she said, "Well, he's not your child anyway." And I just happened to be there at that time, and I said, "Wait, what? He's not my dad?" And my mom walked upstairs and went in the room, and we never talked about it. She never had a conversation with me. I called my auntie and I said, "Is that true?" And she said, "Yes." And that's how I found out. How I dealt with that,
Yeah.
I'm probably still dealing with that. There's probably still, I'm still trying to heal that inner child of, because it all made sense after that. It all made
Mhm.
sense where I never really felt 100% at home.
Mm,
I never, so when I go to Memphis, brother, I feel at home. When I see Janie, I see Suge, I see Bronte, Jock, Nisi, um, man, that's when I feel at home. And so, but I never had that feeling in California.
hmm
But I would have that feeling every time I went back to Memphis. I didn't understand what that was. So in that moment, that's when I realized, oh, that's where my family's at, and I'm just here
mm,
as an addition to this family. And don't get it twisted. I got treated very well by my stepfathers. My aunt Dale loved her to death. Her husband, Uncle James, I loved him to death. Um, Rest in peace, both of them. They both have passed. My uncle Floyd was the coolest dude on the planet. Light skinned, super light skinned brother with, I think he had blue eyes. You know what I mean? Uncle Floyd was cool. Um, Nobody's family's perfect.
right.
There's always some people, but I was treated very well from them. But there's a difference, man. I don't. It's just there's an energy that you cannot put a. There's something you can't put a finger on when you're around family, like blood family, and uh, and so I always felt a little out of place, like I never really belonged. And I think my behavior as a kid and as a even young adult was indicative of kind of not knowing who I was.
Mm. And to find out like that is probably heart wrenching. Also, not to get any responses from, any answers from your mom, but I also understand the time frame is kids stayed in kids' place when we were younger.
Hmm.
You didn't ask adult questions about adult things, and
Yeah.
so we were forced to sit on that stuff and internalize it, because you ain't supposed to be talking to adults about adult matters. You
And you have
know,
to thug it out.
you had to. You had to, but not knowing that the damage that stuff caused, the
Yeah.
generational trauma that
Yeah.
became normalized, that we walked through and that we processed through. And so as you are moving up through your you're in middle school, high school, you're becoming this great athlete. You start to find you start to find cliques, but you still having this identity crisis. What was high school like for you? Were you still able to just blend in throughout high school into different cliques? Were you starting to kind of put some other pieces together? Were you at that point? Did your relationship with your mom shift because you heard something and it never was resolved? And then did that cause you to have look at your dad a certain kind of way?
Hmm.
I know it's
Well,
a lot. I didn't mean to run that all
yeah.
off, but
No, you're good. You're good. Through high school, living here in this area, you were just always reminded that you were black.
okay.
Um, that's just the way it is in the suburbs. Your parents want something more for the family, so they move you to the suburbs, and there wasn't a lot of black folks out here, and so you were always reminded every day, one way or the other, that you were black,
Mm.
and that can wear on you after a while because you're constantly reminded that you're different.
Mm-hmm.
You you
Mm-hmm.
you don't, you don't just blend in. So, do you like a lot of the proms I went to? It would be like with a family friend's daughter because she was black. Um, I was afraid to ask. Honestly, man, I was afraid to ask anybody um, to like a dance or something like that because I felt like their parents were going to be like, nope,
Right.
not on my watch. So I would either go by myself or, there's someone I dated when I was in high school. I went with her. She just happened, her family moved out from Connecticut. And I was able to go with her to a couple of things. But it just definitely was, there was definitely a reminder every day. But then I tried to use it to my advantage as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you're different, you stand out. And so, you try to leverage that. You try to leverage that attention for good.
Right. Or for something.
Yep, or for something. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And then what was the other part of the I can't remember.
Um, and what? How did the relationship change with you and your dad going through now that you realized that he really wasn't who you thought he was?
It never really changed. He was always a provider.
Oh.
That's what he did. Old school mentality. You know what I mean. He's going to be there. He's going to provide.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't get if I'm going to speak from my personal experience, which probably won't be the same for my younger brothers. Is I don't have the conversations with him. You know,
Hmm.
there was times where even within that marriage and that family dynamic, there was times where I felt like it was just me and my mom or me and my auntie.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Understandable. So as you are, you know, as a young, teenager trying to figure out life, you hear something and it shifts you, really didn't get resolve on it. You're trying to blend into a community that really don't want you to be part of the community. um what was one of your major takeaways for your high school, from high school through your experience?
Um, I think the major takeaway that I can look back now and say is uh, greatness is not determined by the color of your skin or the color of the people that you are around.
Hmm.
Um, and understanding that you being authentically yourself, there's power in that. And if I could go back and do anything differently, and generally I don't say, "Oh, I want to do something differently." Everything I feel like would have still been the same, but I think it could have got me to some places a little bit faster. Is
Hmm.
if I could have just learned how to love myself, know who I was, and love myself, and feel like that I was worth it, because I didn't. I spent a lot of my life not realizing I was worth it, and the decisions I made, and situations I got myself into were perfect examples of a low self esteem and low self worth.
Okay. That's huge. That is huge because that's something that grows as you grow.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't. You don't grow, and then it shrinks. It grows as you grow. Now, in that time, did you ever ask your mom, or and then you said y'all didn't talk about it, but did you ever want to know who your real dad was? Have you ever met him? Have you reached out to him? What was did you do any of those steps, or did you just kind of charge it to the game and wait till you got a little bit older and then say, you know what, I'm gonna go out and try to find who he is?
I just kind of charged it to the game. I was so busy. Uh, I do a really good job of compartmentalizing, which isn't necessarily the healthiest thing to do.
Mhm.
But I got so busy just trying to be good at sports. I also it also created a people pleaser mentality for myself.
Mm.
So I like being good at sports, and I loved playing the sport. But I think the most joy I got out of the sport was making my parents proud. They make okay, so they smile, so I'm good. Um, if I do something good, they're happy. I'm good. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that I really wanted to do, or if I really was passionate. Sorry about that.
It's
Or
all good.
passionate about it. It just ends up being something that, yeah, it was something that I wanted to. It was. I became a people pleaser, and in within that, um, it created some really uncomfortable situations for myself growing up.
Yeah, I can only imagine I mean, I not even I can imagine. I understand because when you are trying to
You still
please
there?
people, can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello. I'm here. Can you hear me? Let's see. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You still there?
I am. I'm here. Let's see.
Sorry, I can't hear you, brother. Ah,
Can you hear me? One,
I,
two, 1, 2.
yeah, I can now.
Okay. And this is one of the best things about pre-recording because guess
Yeah,
what?
we just
None
edit
of that's
that
going to
out.
be in there.
Hold
It,
on before. All
it,
right, hold on before we cut it. Hold on 1 second.
okay.
Sorry about that. My son was calling me. Uh, okay. And what was the last part that you heard me? You heard me say.
Um, the last part was it just created some situations that being a people pleaser just
Mm,
just created some situations that you got into.
okay. Okay. All right. We can keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So so one of the things about that people pleasing is it's hard to kind of navigate life because everybody's hoop is different. So
Hmm.
you have to put on so many kind of masks to just and then they all start to blend in so you don't know which mask that you need to put on and,
Hmm.
and you just lose yourself totally in trying to be somebody else's perception of who they think you should be. um I
Yeah.
that's a hard journey. So now you're processing through that. You realize that you're a good athlete. You're trying to be a role model to your younger brother. You're looking up at your older brother who's out doing life, and you're watching your your parents. Here's a question that I asked at the beginning, and you didn't get around to it. But how important do you believe having a positive male figure in the house is?
It's very important. It's very important. Even though I didn't have those conversations with my dad, he did provide. He did come
Hmm.
home every day, and I watched. And I remember I was 27 years old. I was at a club. It was in the VIP section. Like 2 o'clock in the morning, the club was just about to shut down, and I woke up. And when I mean woke up, literally, I had fallen asleep in the club. Like I was done with it. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. And the next day, went home, I went to sleep. And the next day when I woke up, I said, I want to put on a shirt and tie like my dad.
Mm.
And I no longer wanted to be out there doing, you know, the stuff I was doing. And that's when I started really taking work seriously. And shortly after that, I got lucky. A buddy of mine got me on at a place called TCI Cable, which turned into AT&T Broadband, which is now Comcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When you graduated high school, did you go off to college? Did you go into the workforce? What did that?
I went to junior college, Diabo Valley College, and played football 2 years there. Really enjoyed the time. We had some pretty good teams, especially my first year.
Hmm.
Had a couple of dope coaches, Richard Rodgers being one of them. His son ended up being tight end for the Green Bay Packers, and I'm not quite sure where he's at now, but he was with Carolina for a while as a special teams coach, and I'm not quite sure where he's at. But great Cal Berkeley alumni. Um, was a stud in his own right when he played, and got a
Hmm.
chance to learn a lot from him at that defensive back. And I like playing. I love playing the game.
Do you think if you would have put more effort into your craft, that you could have took it a little further than what you took it?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, as a defensive back, a lot of people don't, um, and a corner at that, because I played corner.
Hmm.
Um, it is you got to have a special kind of chip on your shoulder and a special kind of confidence on your shoulder to play cornerback.
For sure.
Uh, it definitely created a lot of confidence in myself and who I was, and maybe borderline a little arrogance at times. Um, but you gotta have that, and I think playing if I really would have just buckled down and just worked at it. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about from the foods I put into my body to the craft. Like I said, I was naturally gifted, so I picked up things fast. But all I needed to do was just keep working on those and keep working on the mental aspect of the game because I had the instincts to be good
Hmm.
at it. I probably could have played at a pretty high D1 level. I won't say I would have made it to the league, but I was good.
And we had a conversation. Um, we had a conversation not too long ago, and it was asking about regret, and one of those things. What do you regret? And I really don't regret anything that I did, other than going to college that did recruit me to play to pay for college when I had free money on the table. Because
Mhm.
I played corner and I played strong safety, and I was always a bigger, corner and strong safety at 6'1". I was always, you know, I was different when it
Mhm.
came to that. So, and I played at a high level, and then decided not to play. I just
Mhm.
Oh, my dad was sick. My dad was sick. So in this, so you leave, you go to junior college. What was the What stopped you from saying, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this 4 years? So after you did your JUCO, did you graduate out of the JUCO?
No, I didn't. What ended up happening for me was is I was there and I'm playing football. My younger brother is going to St. Mary's College in Moraga, and he's playing. And so, parents was paying for college for my brother. So my mother had pulled me aside one day and she said, "Well, you're going to have to get a scholarship because we can't afford to to send you to college." And at that point in time, football was no longer fun for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It became more of a job than it was a me going out and just enjoying the game, and I lost it in the last game that we had. Um, there's a school
Hold on,
called
hold on, hold on,
TV.
hold on. My TV just went straight out.
Uh-oh.
Did I blank out?
No, I didn't see you blank out.
Oh, like I think we had a power surge and everything in my house just went off. So um my bad about that. And everything just went black.
Oh, okay.
Um as you were as you hear that information, did you automatically say, you know what, I'm about to go out here and grind. I'm about to go out here and I'm about to make some things happen.
No, I just knew the only thing I could see at that moment was the game wasn't fun anymore. But because I had talent, I could still go out there and play.
Mm-hmm.
And still do fairly well. And so, but I didn't even come close to living up to my potential of what I could have done in the sport. And I think after that um, is when I kind of got um, into the workforce.
So how does that play, when you look at the version of who you are now, and you look at the version of who you were then, how does that play when you interact with your son now?
Mm, man, it plays every part in every aspect in every conversation and every interaction. It plays a huge part because I'm trying to provide him the structure and guidance and support that I didn't necessarily feel I got. Um, and that's not to say I wasn't getting support, uh, but it wasn't for what I needed as an individual, because I just don't think there's a cookie cutter approach to raising kids. There isn't a cookie cutter approach to anything where you have to deal with other people, interact with other people. And so what I needed, I didn't provide. I wasn't provided. And so I try to make sure that I have those conversations with my son,
Mm-hmm.
that he feels comfortable coming to talking to me, and we talk about what's right and what's wrong. And, so tell me what you got going on. I want to know. I don't want to just yell at him. I
Mm-hmm.
need to understand what's happening with him so I can sharpen his mental skills to be able to deal with that. Because one thing that we do, especially in our generation, we had a lot of people that just went out there with no tools on how to cope with disappointment, how to cope with depression, how to cope with failure,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, so it created a situation where you just kind of try to figure it out on your own. And a lot of that time you're figuring it out on your own. You're figuring it out in the heightened sense of emotion for whatever that situation is. And man, we don't ever really make really smart decisions when when we're leading with emotion.
Man, I say emotions make for a bad compass all the
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
You can't get nowhere. That thing broke.
Hmm.
It'll lead you all around the mulberry bush, and it's hard as a father because I push my son to be the best that he could possibly be, but I didn't want to sacrifice the relationship to make him a great athlete.
Yeah.
You know, there was a ESPN 30 for 30 that had Brian Bosworth on it, and Brian Bosworth's dad. He was talking about his dad and how hard his dad was, and how tough his dad was, and how he pushed him and pushed him and pushed him, but it cost him something. It costed him the relationship, and he was like, I never really was able to recover from how hard he pushed. Yeah, I made it to D1. I made it as an All American. I made it to the league. I played a few years, but at the end of the day, I lost my dad,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and that thing just that rang with me. And I, as dads who have sons, and we try to make sure that we are better versions of our parents, so that they can have, and we try to set them up, and give them the ins and outs. But we have to also remember that we have to be a safe place and a safe landing space, for them. And
Yeah.
I I heard this as it was this dude. His name is Kirkland. I can't remember his first name, but he said, I was at a man's conference, and he said, you control them when they're younger so that you can influence them when they're teenagers, and then you can lead them as adults.
Mm, I love that. Yeah.
And that's how I parent my son, that I controlled all the stuff that he was in early, and throughout his high school, teenage years, I was the cool dad, and you know what I mean, so I could have influence over his friends and stuff like that. But so as you are being, you're navigating life, you out here, and now you get in the workforce, you start, life is happening. At what age did you have your son?
I was third. Oh well, my son I had, because I have a daughter too. I have a 19-year-old daughter.
Okay.
So I had my daughter. My daughter was at when I was 31, I believe it was, and my son was at 41.
Okay, so 31. So you have a baby girl.
Yeah.
How was that? Okay, don't let me ask this. Now, so were you in the relationship with her mom, was it a long-term relationship?
Yeah, 10 years. They both have the same mother.
Okay. Were you married?
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
And do you think you were equipped enough to be in a relationship based off of like your examples?
Oh no, no,
Said nope.
no. I almost feel like I want to go to that movie Get Out, and she's like, no, 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 no. A majority of my growth has into who I am now has come from 40, 42 in the last 10 years.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So um did you know how to be a dad to a daughter? What was that learning curve like? And also trying to maintain a healthy relationship with her mom.
Um, they tell you there's a saying that you can tell somebody's energy by how kids respond to them and animals respond to them.
Mhm.
Animals
Mhm.
have always loved me, and kids have always loved me. I always knew I was going to have a daughter first.
Ooh.
I was mentally, I was ready for it as much as I possibly could be, as much as anybody's ready to be a parent for the first time. Um, so I embraced it. Me and my daughter had a really, really strong relationship. She was a daddy's girl. And I used to, I remember I used to sing to her. I used to sing Nat King Cole's Unforgettable.
Uh-huh.
I would sing to her when I was rocking her to sleep. And that was definitely a special time.
At what age did you stop rocking her to sleep and stop singing that Nat King Cole to her?
Man, maybe 4 years old.
Mm.
Probably around that time. It was definitely when she was first born in those first few years. Absolutely.
What was your feeling when you said, like when you had this daughter? You said you knew you was gonna have a daughter. That's amazing because I just was like, God, you cannot do that to me because it was like, oh my God. Oh, she would be a savage though, but
Mm-hmm.
man. So you were out in these. Were you ever out in these streets wilding? Like,
Oh, when I was younger, absolutely.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, when you had a daughter, did they put things in perspective?
Man, I had this brother who was a good friend of mine. His name was Dana, and I remember him telling me, "She's gonna change your life.
Hmm.
She's gonna change your life." It does put everything in perspective because then you have to ask yourself, "Do I want my daughter to have to deal with somebody like me?"
Ooh, that's a
I
tough
was like,
question.
hell to the no, no,
Ooh, that's a tough
not.
question.
It's a tough question, and you have to be honest with yourself. And I, at that point, I was like, no, I really didn't. Um, and so then you got to start going to work on yourself.
Was that a hard reality though? Like real talk, was you really like, nah, I do not. No, 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 no. Like the that mirror reflected something that you thought was not good enough for your daughter. How
Yes.
how how did how did you handle that? And being that you were in a relationship, did any of that look and say, this is somebody else's daughter that I have to be mindful about?
Um, I think yes for both. You do have to be mindful of all your interactions with any women.
Hmm.
And it does shine a light on it. It does shine a light. Like it made me very protective of my daughter. It made me, I wanted her to, to feel affection and feel loved and feel protected. And um, I think her and her mom and myself really struggled with just being on the same page
Hmm.
as far as what's required in a relationship. I think if I had my mindset now, I may have been able to make some adjustments um, to be able that would have worked out a little bit better for us. I don't necessarily feel like it would have saved it. We're just such different people that with different pasts and different
Hmm.
things that have happened, different traumas, and so it just was a we do. My dad told us once, you guys act like brother and sister. We do better at
And being friends.
at kind of as a co-parenting and talking mess to each other than we ever did in a relationship.
I think co-parenting is definitely a lost art. I
Yeah.
don't, that is a definite a ministry that could really flourish and thrive if you have successful co-parenting um, couples that could sit up here and say, "Hey, our mission is the child, and we have to work through our differences." Okay, so now you're a dad of a baby girl.
Hmm.
You out trying to still at this point you're still trying to figure out who you were,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Were you still was you still at the people pleasing piece, or were you starting to slowly transition out of that because now you have this daughter that is kind of starting to make you realize that you can't be pleasing people and be a dad at the same time?
No, it actually didn't. I don't that people pleasing. I didn't recognize that and really start transitioning away and trying to work through that people pleasing until, man, after my son was born.
Mm,
It was a very that those first couple of years, because those are the years that me and the kid's mom um, separated. Really, really tough years. And I put a lot on I put a lot on my shoulders. I was felt really bad and felt real responsible, but um, I felt like I felt like I took too much ownership
mm,
of our situation not working out. And the people pleasing part, people will try to make you feel guilty about something for doing something that's best for you. And at that point in time, it was best for me not to continue in that situation. And because of that, I was I was the bad guy. And so and I understand I didn't necessarily I wasn't trying to leave my family. I wanted to leave the situation, but I wanted to be there for my kids. And you know you just have to fight through those feelings and all of that comes along with those kinds of breakups and be as consistent as you can. But the people pleasing, I think it took a few years after that separation to really get my understand that that's what I do, and
mhm.
then understand, okay, so this is the adjustment. I got to be right first. I can't be so worried about everybody else before myself.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that it's hard when you trying to make the right choice and the right decision and somebody trying to make you feel bad for making the right choice and the right decision. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to be a better human.
yeah. It wasn't a good fit. We weren't a good fit. You know what I'm saying? We just weren't. We just weren't a good fit, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You give it the good old college try, and then you move on.
So after you transition, were when you transitioned out of that relationship, were y'all both mature enough to still have good co-parenting um interactions?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It took probably 4 or 5 years before we got into a decent space, and then it just got better and better each year. You could probably ask her right now. She might even say we don't. We do, as far as I'm concerned. We do. We have conversations about the kids. We can joke with each other. Um, we do our best to work together to for the children, and that's really what co-parenting is about. It's not about someone doing everything you need them to do the right way. It's about, are we doing what's best for the kids? And we have I have my great times, and there's some times where I slip up a little bit. Same thing with her, and we chalk it up to the game and we keep it moving.
You know that it's so often you will hear, and I know that you didn't say this, but so often you would hear that whoever controls the time controls the narrative.
Mm,
So
yeah,
so if for her to not control, so still give you access, it could have been real bad. I have a homeboy right now who whose mother of his child wrote this very very bad narrative of him, and now this son hates his father because of the stories that she told and how she framed it, and made him out to be this bad dude when he is actually an amazing father. But
yeah,
because of her emotional instability and things like that, she took it out on him through their child. And I hate seeing that. I
yeah,
hate I hate seeing fathers get a bad rap because I just decided to make a better decision for where I wanted to be at in life.
yeah. I will say I experienced that. In with all respect to my kid's mom and her growth as an individual and our growth as parents to these two amazing kids. there was a really bad time where I was made to be out to be this horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wasn't, but it doesn't make it just because I know it. When you hear it, and it's posted on social media, um, and people are, you got family coming to you asking if you would do this and do that. That right there will wear on you. And I did go through that. I did go through that, but
Mm-hmm.
we also were able to bounce back and get ourselves into a much better space. But I I'm I know that
Man.
feeling very well, and it's very uncomfortable. It just I think the only thing that's different from mine is it didn't spoil the relationships with my son. Number one, my son was too young, so it was just dad, 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 and me and my daughter did have some rough years after that, and but we worked through that as well. And all you can do is be consistent.
And that is, yeah. I mean, you have a success story, man. Because I'm pretty sure you counsel and mentor a lot of people, kids and parent who are products of these kind of situations. That that how do I not internalize that it's not me as a child, and then
Mhm.
whatever the other words are being said, and now I'm looking at you all side eye and crazy eye because of the narrative of the person who controls the time. So
Yeah, and I think the thing of what a lot of people, and this is a whole nother topic, but I do want to touch on it just a little bit.
go ahead.
When you're talking about the narrative that some parents, some people or parents and we'll just go a woman will paint of the father. There's a
Hmm.
couple of things. There's a couple of manipulative ways that it's happened, and one example is, uh, "Mom, can I have something?" And mom may not have the money, and
Hmm.
so mom goes, "Well, go ask your dad. You need to call your dad and ask." And if I don't have the money to do it, then it's dad's fault, right?
Right.
Didn't
Right.
say I don't have it, and then sidebar me and say, hey, this is what they're asking for. You know what I'm saying? Is there some way we can try to come together and make this happen for them? No, it's and when people do that, that's one way of manipulating the children. Another
Hmm.
way is if you come home and I saw a woman was talking about this where you send your child, the woman sends her child to the dad's house and you come back and she says something like, oh my goodness, where's your coat at? He didn't put a coat on you. Oh, I'm
Right.
sure you must be cold. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, wait, all you had was, what did you eat? All you had is that. Well, let me make sure that make sure I feed you. These are all manipulation tactics,
Right.
right? To paint the other person, whether it's the mother or the father, you paint them in the negative aspect. I have nothing but respect for the woman that never spoke an ill word or tried to manipulate their child, and they allowed their child to make that decision on who their father was based on their relationship with them. Uh,
Hmm.
I have nothing but respect for women who do that. I struggle when I watch women use the manipulation tactics, or even men, because we both do it. Anybody that's manipulative, I struggle with, and there's just different tactics that you can use. But those are just a couple of examples. Some of them I've been through,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
experienced. And some of them
Hmm.
I just heard uh, a woman talking about it, and she was talking about how different ways that people use to the kid, different ways to manipulate the children.
And the child don't know any different. It's those seeds that are planted that then start to grow, that start to become this thorn bush that keeps you away from them, because now you become the enemy. And um and it really, when it's wanting your attention. So now you are a father of a baby girl. You out in the workforce. um at what point did you say, um man, I know you said 42, so from 30, 31 to 42, so over those 11 11 years, you were still trying to put the pieces together. You've been an amazing dad as best you can. Um, and then you have your son. What was that like? What was the emotion that came from that? Um
Well, my son was my daughter was born early. She tried to
mhm.
come way early. My son didn't want to come out. My daughter came early. She had jaundice. She was pink. She had this real light color. We called her. My dad called her cheesecake. That was her nickname, was cheesecake. And then like a month later, all of a sudden, it just felt like overnight. All of a sudden, she turned into like chocolate cheesecake. All of a sudden, she was dark.
Mm.
My son, I I feel like my son came out with a full head of hair and a driver's license, and he was ready to go to work.
He was ready out straight out the womb, ready to do it.
Straight out the womb. She had back labor, and that was very, very painful. Any woman who knows that's had, been pregnant, back labor, just walking is hard. Quick sidebar: I was on the couch one night and I was watching TV with my kid's mom, and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to bed." And the stairs to go to the bed. We stayed in a condo that had like 4 flights of stairs in it.
Mhm.
And so I'm watching the TV and I'm really into the show. I think like 5 minutes later, I look up. She's still standing at the bottom of the stairs. And I was like, "What's wrong?" She got tears coming down her eyes, and she was just like, "I can't walk up the stairs. I can't walk up." She really, really struggled. And so he was dug in like a tick. And because it was back labor and dug in like a tick, her hips were spreading. It was very
Mm.
hard for her to walk. So when he came out at was it 9 pounds or 10 pounds 2 ounces, something like, I can't remember. He was
Oh, he was
massive.
big. He was
He
big.
was massive. He came out and his eyes were open and he looking around, and my daughter's standing in front of him. She's young, like, "Hey, look at this." And everybody looked and was like, "Where was this kid? Where was this massive baby?" Because she didn't, when she was pregnant with my daughter, she got really big. And with my
Mhm.
son, he didn't drop. And it was that back labor that where he didn't drop. And it was just, it was a phenomenal experience. Uh, I still remember it. I still remember both my daughter and my son, because I was in there while she was giving birth to both of them. I remember both of them. I'm gonna tell you something. Becoming a father is probably the best thing. I'm gonna speak for myself. It's probably the
Oh, you
most
just
amazing experience I've ever
yes.
had in my life.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
as the baby's coming out, you realizing, wait a minute, I created this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
there's a responsibility that is almost overwhelming in those moments. If you are dialed in those moments, there's a responsibility that is almost overwhelming that overcomes you. And my son, it was different because my daughter was like, "Oh, I need to make sure that I'm an example of the type of man she needs to look for." And then my son was different, and it's more of a responsibility to make sure that he is actually exhibiting the behaviors of a good man.
Yeah.
And listen, I can be the example. Shoot, even you can sometimes fake the example. You know what I'm saying, with your
Right.
daughters, right? But
Right.
you cannot fake sharpening that iron. You either sharpening it or you're not. There's a
Or
there's
you're
a
not.
whole different type of responsibility that comes along with raising a son if you're trying to raise him to be a good human and a good man.
Man,
So
that,
raising him, it was different than him coming out was a little bit different than my daughter, but the overwhelming responsibility of both never changed.
that you know the thing that helped you is you already had what 10 years in the game of being a parent, so
Yeah,
you kind of have some rules and some kind of guidelines to help, but you're talking about the affirmation comes from the father. So to have to try to be the example that you want your daughter to date, but then also be the man that you want your son to emulate, um, could be one in the same, is one in the same, but the
Mhm.
process of going about it is different. One, because of the age gap, so you had to kind of go back and relearn some stuff
Yeah.
and then walk your way through it. So right now, your baby, you have a baby in college. She's 19. She's
Mhm.
okay, and then you have a 10-year-old.
Yeah, he's 12. So I was
He's
off
12.
of a couple of years on one of them. He's 12. He just turned 12.
Okay, and he's
Both
what?
both October babies.
And
Both October
he's seventh
babies.
grade. He's seventh grade, eighth grade,
He's in
12.
sixth. He'll be in seventh next year. So
Okay,
he's just finishing his sixth grade year here in
okay.
next few months.
Man, I tell you what, are you helping him with homework? Sixth grade homework?
Do you see how I took you in that air?
Man, sixth grade homework was the hardest, but we made it through.
I
Oh,
feel I feel I feel like I need to go to sixth grade again. Like I need to do over at sixth grade because I the math that they got ain't mathing for me.
Man, I used to get frustrated. I used to tell my son, "Did you get the answer?" And then it'll be marked wrong. And now I'm doing one of those manipulative tactics that you didn't already did, that you just kind of mentioned but I'm doing it with the teacher. I'm like, she wrong though. The answer's right. She'll need to see you work the problem. I mean, all this other stuff. And he was like, Dad, I need to know how to do the problem. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
all on YouTube and I'm
Mhm.
struggling because my wife is she's the academia out of us. She's
Yeah.
actually really smart. And I was in the sixth grade, bro. I was like, boy, I can't wait till we get out. We get out of sixth grade. We made it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
We
we
made it.
made it.
I'm telling you,
We
I
yeah.
looked at some of that stuff. I'm like, what?
Like man, what do you? Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, bruh, you need to do it. So now so at what point did you transition into at what point did you transition? You said at 42. What was the thing at 42 that caused you to say, you know what, there's something greater inside of me and I need to start to hone that and push that person out and become that the best version of myself. What triggered that?
I think I was an operations manager. I got hired as a supervisor, and then was an operations manager uh, for Comcast.
Hmm.
And as I as I realized I was able to lead people and do well at it, and then had some great leaders there and mentors there that would always have us doing training. There's always some kind of leadership training. Was always trying to build better leaders and put people in positions to do better and to learn more about leadership and how to be effective in those positions. Um, I realized my impact on people, and
Hmm.
that's when the bug was. That's when the seed was planted. When I started realizing the impact I had on people, when I started getting, I have employees telling me how much they appreciated me and the opportunity I gave them, and hey, no, I really appreciate what you did for me, and watching the happy employee is a productive employee, and so we started creating these really good cultures in the areas that I was at, and it was a really cool thing to watch, and I think that planted the seed in myself that there was something more meant for me, but there was still some lessons I needed to learn. And so after, I left that situation with the kid's mom. I had a rebound relationship for about a year. Um, that was fun just because it gave me everything that I was missing in the previous relationship. And then
Hmm.
I entered into a toxic, super toxic uh, relationship with someone that I don't know who she is or I know where she is, but I don't know who she is now, what she's grown into, but that wasn't a good person at all.
What,
And
but what made you? What made you? There was something that you seen in her that said that she has the potential. What was it that drew you to her? That you ultimately look back and say, "Oh man, that probably wasn't the best um, scope of what I was looking at."
it's probably pretty shallow. I felt like she was really beautiful. She was very talented. Um,
Hmm.
she's beautiful. She was talented. She was a vocalist. She was very talented, and was very manipulative. And I was still in that little. I was still in the people pleasing stage, and
Hmm.
I think that's actually what jarred me. That situation and how it ended. That's the one that jarred me into shaking me out of that. But it was a very toxic um, relationship for about a year and a half. And I think we totaled 2 years and us talking, maybe a little bit more than 2 years of us interacting. But I think I remember the last time I spoke to her, I was just so happy that I was done. Like I was like, yeah, I'm done. And then she, about 3 months later, she um, reached out to me with a text, and I just gave her a really dry reply. I think it was kind of a temperature check, and then
Uh-huh.
a really dry reply. And I think 4 or 5 months after that, she was engaged, and a year later, she was married and gone. So it was
And
I was happy for her because I was so happy she wasn't around me no more.
say she's somebody else's issue at this point.
You
But
know,
she
it's
probably
about it's
grown.
you know what
She
it's
could
about.
have
She probably
grown.
found the right person for her, man, and that's
Yeah,
really what life is all about.
yeah, and that's a good thing. So, have you been married?
I haven't. I think when I would have gotten married, it was going to be in my 30s, and in my 30s, I was with the kid's mom, and so we were trying to figure that out. It never. I was never in a space comfortable enough to go there. We talked about it a couple of times. I just never got to a space where I was comfortable doing it. And then once I hit my 40s and I had the rebound relationship, and then that toxic one, I needed to take some time, and that's where my growth. That's when my growth started. I literally had to stop dating for a year. I didn't want to deal with anybody. I had to unlearn this individual that was in my head. Um, we had this soul tie that was an unhealthy soul tie, and I had to unlearn all of this. And so it took me some years to understand, uh, who I was and who I wanted to be, and have build some confidence back up into myself. And then from there, you can just go back out there, and then you get battle tested and you realize, ooh, I haven't put the work in that I needed to. And then
Right.
go back into you go back into the lab, and then you something else, and you battle test it again. And then I realized there was some childhood stuff that um, I had not dealt with. And that's probably why all the situations happened the way they did, because there was unresolved childhood issues that I hadn't dealt with.
And that would do it every time because the mirror will have all the answers.
Yeah, the universe gives you who you are.
Yeah, the mirror will definitely have all the answers, and you have to be willing. And I'm glad you did because you wouldn't be the guy that you are now. But you had to go and put that work in. And here's one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand about the work. Like the work is work to become a better human, to get over the insecurities and the pitfalls and the all the stuff that we done built up on the inside. It is laborious. It is
Yeah.
sacrificial. It is one of those things where that I have a desire to be different. I was desperate to be different. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it was one of those things where I could not be the same dude that I was, and so my desperation pushed me into the trenches to be something different. And I hear it when I hear people talk, and they're talking about their process. I'm like, oh, okay, you really in the trenches because I understand. I've been there. And
Yeah.
so when you resurfaced, what was different about you that you could visibly see?
I would say the confidence level was was really strong. Um, I could visually see how I responded to uh, people in different situations,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that I was no longer here to make people happy. I'm here to be happy myself, and then I can, we can come together and be happy together. But it's not my job, and I say this, um, and I heard this on this video called the Tonight's Conversation, where a guy said, "I'm here for maintenance, uh, not construction." And
Mm.
so I realized that's what we are. We're here for maintenance, not construction. So you have to make sure that you have the discernment to understand who is sitting in front of you and what do they need. And is it something that you are actually able to provide? And that was one of the things that I was able to notice, that I did sit down and talk to myself about. I do a lot of self-reflection. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would sit down and ask myself after I met individuals, okay, is this the right person or situation for me? If I was at a job, is this the right situation for me? And I still, because I being battle tested, you still realize that there was some people pleasing things. I stayed at jobs because I knew my mom felt like, hey, that's a good job, you should stay there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good job, you should stay there. My heart was telling me something different. And I stayed at jobs. And so once I realized, coming out of that, you realize that you really have to understand who you are and what your purpose is. And then you just go out and you just go put in the work.
Right.
Everything will everything generally is going to work itself out. As long as you're moving with integrity, things will work out for you. And that's
And
always
you
been
putting that work in.
yep.
Yeah, that work is important. So as you started to address some of your childhood issues, you started to um, you know r- cut loose some of the personas that you created to kind of fit in. Did you ever? What's your relationship like with your parents now?
It's pretty good now. It's pretty good. They're I don't stay far from them. I'm in between my son and them, and so they need some help. I'll head over there and help them out when I can, and it's fairly good. It's fairly good at this point.
Have you ever thought to ask, like, mom, like, when I was young, or have that conversation when I was younger, you said this and we never had no conversation about it, and I just want to get some closure? Or you just kind of like, it is what it is? Or and the other second part of that question is, have you tried to reach out to your real father just to kind of start some kind of relationship with him?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because you mentioned that earlier and I didn't touch on it. So
Mm.
I did meet my real father when I was 31.
Okay.
I did meet my real father when I was 31 years old, and the best way I can explain that experience is, if anybody's seen Antoine Fisher,
Oh yeah, yeah,
at the very end
yeah,
when he walked into that room and they started introducing him to different family members,
yeah.
and he didn't know who he was.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I think my mom even told me when she watched that movie that that reminded her. Someone told me that he reminded them of me.
Mm.
And I remember meet my real father. I went out there, and what ended up happening is my auntie one day said, "Hey," because you did ask me earlier if I ever seek them out, and I didn't. I just got to work. That's what we were talking about. I just got to work. I'm playing sports and whatnot, and then years later, I'm 31 years old, and my auntie says, "Hey, have you ever thought about meeting your real dad?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, "Why do you ask?" And she said, "Because I think it'd be nice for you to meet somebody that you look like."
Mm.
And I was like, "Whoa, never thought about it." And then boom, uh, ended up reaching out. We made it happen. Um, Very powerful moment.
Mhm.
Uh, dope, dope man. He's dope, just a dope person. He was the everybody loved him. Um, he was a really good man. He could cook. He could bake. He was a carpenter and he was a tailor. He didn't need nobody to do nothing for him. He could build a house. He can make a suit. He could cook your dinner and make your dessert. So
Is that where you get it from? Is that
yeah,
yeah?
yeah, yeah. And so he did that, and so that's just who he was. So I met him when I was 31, and that was a cool experience. A little bittersweet because you're never just able to build a father-son bond at that age. At that, 30 years go by of not seeing it. We never really were able to build a really strong father-son bond. But I made my first Thanksgiving dinner with him on what was it? There was a video chat before. The first video chat was
Periscope.
no, it was I think it was before Periscope. Uh, this wasn't FaceTime. It was there was a video chat that we used to use, and I
Mm,
made my first Thanksgiving dinner. He was talking to me about how to do the dressing, and I was showing him everything that I did, and it was good. It was good to see him. It was good to be able to spend some time with him,
hmm.
and but I never really and so with my mom, I never went back and asked because I never felt like I was going to get the truth because I tried a couple of times and I just wasn't feeling like the information that was being provided was necessarily. I needed raw answers. Tell me
Right,
exactly what happened. Don't try to sugarcoat it, candy coat it. Let me know what happened. And so, what like a lot of us have to do, man, we have to forgive our parents. They did the best that they could
right, for
with the
sure.
cards that they were dealt. And we can hold grudges as long as we want, but at the end of the day, they did the best that they could. And so,
With what they
for
had.
my piece, I had
Yeah.
to I had to stop asking. And unfortunately, my dad passed about 10 years after I met him. Yeah.
Okay. You and my homeboy story is similar in that aspect because he was trying to. I mean, the whole. He didn't know who he was. His aunt was like, "Hey, you might want to." The whole same scenario. And he was we talked a couple of weeks ago, and he was still trying to press his mom for answers, and she just wasn't ready to say anything, and he got frustrated. And I was like, bro, you can't make her say anything that she don't want to have to rehash and relive. Um, so you just have to deal with it. But he was like, I'm still trying to figure out who I am and put these pieces together, who this man was and why. So it's just it's just this whole long drawn out thing that, and I get it that for your peace and for your sanctity, you just like, you know what, just gonna cut my losses and charge it to the game. I don't need to know what was going on, and
Mhm. I got a chance to know my dad. You
yeah,
know, I
and
got a
yeah,
chance to know my dad,
yeah,
and at the end of the day, I had a man provide for me growing up. He was my dad, and at the end of the day, I'm still blessed. I'm still highly favored. Just even within that, because there's people who've never that are way further down in the process of trying to find out who they are and who their father was, and so I'm okay with where it's at.
man, that's a good place to be in. And so and now you have an amazing relationship with your dad. I mean, with your kids.
Yes, yes,
Man, that's great.
yeah, babies, yes.
That's great. That's full to go full circle. You know what I mean? Like that's an amazing thing. So right now, what are you currently doing? You have a company, right?
Yeah, right now I have a corporate job, and I kind of leverage that to help build out a couple of things I'm doing. I actually have two. I haven't even told you about the second one. The first one I created was Black Man Golf,
Black
and
man golf.
yeah, because I love the golf, and it gave me an opportunity to really try to get out there and get some brothers together, create some networking events, and be a part of some networking events and whatnot. Enjoy the game and
Uh-huh.
really get people out there to uh, enjoy it with me. There's a lot of benefits of being out in nature, and in the game of golf can teach you a lot about yourself. And that's a whole nother topic. The other thing I created was 1111 leadership. And I gotta be honest with you, I cannot really talk about either of these businesses without giving a shout out to an amazing woman. Her name is Monique Allen. Um, she's done. She was very instrumental in me creating the minute. As a matter of fact, she's the one who I had gotten let go from a job.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving home. I went to this thing called the Nugget Rib Cook Off, and I'm driving home. And on my way home, um, I got this message. It says, "Here you go," and it was a YouTube page, uh, uh, an Instagram page,
Okay.
and it was Black Men Golf. She created, she created everything. YouTube, Instagram page, and said, "You, the way you talk about golf, you need to be doing something with it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then she has her own business, thriving with that, doing an amazing job with that. And so I just kind of started watching her and seeing how she, some of the plays that she was making, and I ended up creating 1111 leadership, because I feel like most companies, I think just most people, period, whether it's families, relationships, or especially in corporate America, are starving for good leadership. People don't know how to lead. With people who have it in them, there are skills that you need to sharpen to be effective leaders. And so I created the 1111 leadership because I really wanted to try to be impactful in that, and not only in our younger adults, but especially in corporate America, where people are trying to thrive and climb up the ladder, and
Mm-hmm.
do leverage all those tech code switching techniques that you need to do to be able to, 48 laws of power type of Jedi mind tricks you need to use to try to be successful. And I think it's very important that we continue to put that work in um, with the community.
I'm yeah, I'm real big on community, and I think as a leader, you have to be able to teach ways to give back so that people can understand that it's important that we do that, because you can make it and never look back at all and never pull nobody up. I see one of your statements in your even in your TikTok is always paying it forward. So that's a great mentality to have. And so you mentor age groups of what, men or couples or young men or teenagers? What's your
No,
age
it's
group?
it's anybody. I mean, it's all inclusive, really, because the younger we can impact these boys, the better
Hmm.
leaders they become earlier in life,
Hmm.
right? So the
For sure.
earlier, the sooner we can get them into a good understanding what leadership means. And see, here's the thing: a lot of people think. Uh, I think some people are born with the ability to lead, and they never harness that. They end up being the class clown, and everybody likes them, because they're the class clown. They didn't realize that they
Mhm.
had that leadership ability within them to impact people, to get people to look at them, to draw people in. And a lot of people don't ever get an opportunity to leverage that superpower to do something good, whether it's lead people in your life, become a good leader, and advance at their workplace, whatever it is. So I think the earlier we can get to them, the better. I've
Mhm.
been focused, and I have some things in play right now that I'm going to try to get to the younger generation, teenagers, even young adults. But it's always been in corporate that I've tried to leverage the skill that I have and this passion for leadership. Um, it's always been in corporate that I've wanted to do that. I generally want to connect with smaller companies because it costs so much money to bring people in and to keep
Right.
people. And
Right.
so if you have a lot of churn or turnover, whatever you want to call it, it can be very costly for companies. So really having the right leaders, because most employees leave leaders, they don't leave the job. And so if you have the right leaders in play, you'll be able to, number one, create a really good culture. A happy employee is a productive employee, right? These are all cliche things that I'm saying, but I mean, they do hold true. in my
Right.
opinion. And so you want to create a culture where your internal customers or your employees are feeling like they matter, and it's not about this is my tech number or this is my employee ID number. No, I have a first and last name and I have a family. And as your leader, I should know who that is. I should know who
Right.
you are, who that is. I should understand what is your goal here and what is your goal outside of work. And the great leaders will understand that about their teams and be able to speak to it, and then understand that how they show up for them. We call it values. I call it value centered management. And I learned that in the book, and I forgot the book, but it's really leading a servant leadership, where you're leading. You're turning that pyramid upside down, where they have the leader on top and the front
Yeah.
lines at the bottom. You tip it up top, flip
Yeah.
it upside down, and now the leader's on the bottom, and they're holding everything up. Servant leadership, like value centered management, where we focus on what employees value, not a number,
Hmm.
not a metric. And even right now, one of the things that in my corporate job right now, one of the reasons that I don't always see eye to eye with my boss is because he's a great numbers guy, and it's a metric thing to him. You just got to get to this metric. And I told him, I said, you manage numbers, I manage people.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna struggle
Right.
in that aspect, but there's a fine line in between both, where you have to leverage accountability, because accountability is very important. Because really, your most successful employees or most productive employees, they love accountability, because it shines a light on the people that aren't doing nothing. And it's unfair that in most companies, that if you're a productive employee, you probably get the lion's share of the work because you're the productive one. It don't make no sense.
Right.
However, there is a bottom line at the end of the day that, in goals that we need to meet. And so unfortunately that tends to fall on those shoulders. But as leaders, it is up to us to make sure that those individuals are recognized, rewarded, and they feel appreciated.
Man,
And so
that's
that's why I try to make sure that I can share those kind of experiences with people.
man, that's good stuff right there, boy. That's you said something that he managed numbers, you manage people, but there's a fine line.
Yeah.
There is a fine line, and um but when you can work those out, you let me do what I do, I'm gonna do what I do, you know. And if I can do what you let me do what I can do, then I'm gonna get them motivated to do what they need to do, which then helps the overall arching number, that bottom line anyway, and we get numbers. So
Yep.
yeah, I that's good stuff. And look, hey, so y'all look, go follow Mr. Ford 023 on TikTok, y'all. Let that beard work, boy. That beard work is crispy. Get it go.
Yes, sir.
Good, good. That beard work, boy, got that thing. Look at that thing. That thing is crispy. But now, hey, yo, for real talk, y'all go follow him and look at his content, engage with what he's doing. He's big on men's mental health. He's out in these TikTok streets, and he printing out great content and great information. And this is one of the ways that you can be mentored by him. If you can't get him directly, you can always engage with his content. You can always engage with the things that he has going on. And those things right there are ways to be in his space and glean from him and grow. He's out here impacting and changing the community. He's a father. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of character. And I'm glad to get to know him. And I'm glad that he pulled up on our show to hang out with me for a few minutes, and just walk through his life and share something. And hopefully you heard something that inspires, encourages, and motivates you to want to keep your journey going and keep moving. But I do have one last question for you.
Okay.
What is something that you didn't pay attention to early on that you had to learn the hard way as you got older?
Hmm. The importance of consistency. Um, Someone once said, I heard someone say, man, it's about, you want to get yourself into a rhythm every day, right? You want to get yourself into a rhythm every day. If that means you wake up, brush your teeth, wash your face, make your bed,
Mm-hmm.
and then,
Mm-hmm.
then get you in and go get a gym workout in, take a shower. Then you take some time to meditate, some time to write, some time to read. I think it's consistency. Find healthy habits that you can be consistent with, right? And then make sure that you are making time. Try to structure your day around that. And a lot of people aren't structured. It can be hard for people, but really try to force yourself to get structured in uh, in whatever those things are that are going to help you be successful for that day. And consistency, no matter what it is, no matter what you're trying to do in your life, whether you're trying to get a promotion, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to get stronger, consistency in trying to do those things are going to be the things that help drive you to be successful. Couple of things. Communication is a reciprocal uh, transaction, which
Mm-hmm.
means somebody tells you how they're feeling and you actively listen with a head nod, eye contact, and then you respond
Mm-hmm.
and to validate their experience, and then you respond and they validate yours. Good communication isn't just about talking. I mean, people can talk at each other each day, talk at each other all day. Good communication is really a reciprocal interaction where two people are having a conversation and they can validate each other's experiences and um, and still come to some type of understanding, whether they agree to disagree or agree to agree, right? But it's very hard to get people to understand what you're trying to say if you're closed off to their point of view. And so validate, understand, learn how to validate people's experiences without needing to make them feel that they're wrong for feeling that way, because we do not have the right to tell somebody they're wrong about how they're feeling. If somebody tells us how we made them feel that way, a certain type of way, or some type of way, we don't have the right to tell them that they're wrong about how they're feeling. What we can do is validate their experience, understand, work to understand why they're feeling that way, and then work together to try to figure it out, because you have two opportunities when it comes to communication, especially when it comes to disagreements, when you're in no matter what environment you're in, whether it's a relationship or even at work. You can turn towards each other, you can turn away from each other.
Right.
When you turn
Right.
away from each other, nothing ever really gets solved, and people can walk away from that with a bitter taste in their mouth. If you turn towards each other, then you guys can come through, and as Jay Shetty said, take the whatever the problem is, throw it on the wall, and then you two come together to try to figure it out. And then the last thing, I'm around a lot of people who have a lot to say. And a lot of people do. A lot of people have a lot to say, and it's great. I love it. I love hearing people talk, sharing their thoughts. I love forward thinking. I love people who are open to different experiences. But
Mm-hmm.
when you find yourself in situations with people, and even an interview tip for anyone that's looking to try to promote or get a job somewhere, be brief, be bright, and be gone. And what I mean by that is you want to be as impactful as you possibly can in the least amount of time and sit in that uncomfortable silence, especially if it's an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Sit in that uncomfortable silence and let them take it in. Don't feel the need to fill the dead air with rhetorical rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean anything. You're just saying the same thing over and over again. Get your thoughts together, right? And then be able to learn how to articulate them in the shortest time possible. Because after 15 seconds, you're going to start losing people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just the way it goes. You get to 25, 30 seconds. I probably stopped listening at 15, maybe 10, depending on what you're saying. Right. So be brief, be bright, be gone. I promise you, those are the types of things people will remember you for that. It's not about what you say and how long you say it. It's not about how long you say something. It's about what you say and how impactful that is. And sometimes we tend to drag on, just like I just did and what I'm doing right now, saying the same thing over and over and over again. Be brief, be bright, be gone, y'all. We good.
Be brief, be bright, and be gone. You heard it here first. Um, he wrapped it up with that. Hey, look, I love you like a play cousin,
Yes,
and I'm
sir.
out. Peace.